You're listening to Twins Takes, the Minnesota Twins podcast.
Play ball!
And welcome into Twins Takes. I'm Twins Central, joined tonight by Twins Insider. Troy and Falvey's Mattress are unable to join us. The Twins are coming off a rubber match defeat to the New York Mets after extending the Mets' loss streak to a dozen games. The Mets take the final two games of the series. Insider, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing almost as good as the Queens crew who were dancing and singing along to Hot to Go. How are you doing, Central?
I'm doing okay. Sorry if I sound a little bit weird tonight. There's some storms in the area, and my Wi-Fi is also out, so I'm running on a hotspot. But with that, let's get to the news.
Breaking news.
Well, I got some bad news for you.
Extra. Good news, everyone.
It's time for the news.
As I mentioned a moment ago, the Twins lost the series in New York, 1-2 against the Mets. Royce Lewis was activated. Cody Funderburk was placed on the paternity list. He will need to be reactivated Friday or given 3 days on the paternity list. So there's a few ways the Twins could go with this year with Funderburk coming back. They could send Morris down. They could send Rojas down. They could send down the guy that blew the game tonight, or they wouldn't send him down. I guess they would just DFA him, Anthony Banda. What do you think they'll do here, Insider?
I think it's very cathartic to call for a Banda DFA. I think if it was me and I was playing MLB The Show, I think that's what I would do. Teams hate to DFA players. They'll send down Rojas, which is technically a defensible move, but it's certainly the most boring move of the three.
Yeah, I also think it'll be Rojas just because I don't think they're going to roll with four lefties. And we'll talk about Rojas in a little bit. He had some good and bad in his debut yesterday. Ryan Kreidler was also optioned on Wednesday. That was to make room for Connor Prelip, who started and looked really good Wednesday. Another lefty reliever, Taylor Rogers, earned his 10th year of service time. I believe that was yesterday, so congrats to Rogers. He got into the game Wednesday, got a few outs, also walked a guy that came around to score, ended up being the winning run for the Mets. And then there's a few bullpen moves here that the Twins made. Insider, why don't you tell us about them?
Yeah, these are sometimes these moves are not that important, but given the coming DFAs probably in the coming days and weeks, Twins fans have to be on top of these names. So first, on Tuesday, the team signed right-handed pitcher Luis Garcia to a minor league deal per Bobby Nightingale. He's 39 years old. He had a 7.11 ERA in 6 innings this year with the Mets, but he had a 3.42 ERA in 55 innings last year with Washington and the Dodgers. He used to throw hard. His stuff is a little down, but he still had a 101 stuff plus. Again, he's a right-handed guy in St. Paul. He'll be up, I'm sure, at some point. Similar to like a John Brebbia. They'll cycle through some of these guys. And then today, spring training favorite Eric Wagaman, first base, third base, corner outfield, right-handed bat, was designated for assignment because the Twins claimed right-handed pitcher Christian Roa from Houston off waivers. He was also optioned to St. Paul. He had 11.2 innings this year in the big leagues and 3.86 ERA and 6.9 K per nine and a 7.7 walks per nine and 5 earned runs in 8 innings this year for Houston. So he's not been great. He was with the Marlins last year for a couple innings as well, but he throws hard. He actually struck out Mike Trout twice this year in a series. We were looking at his stuff. He has a 98-mile-an-hour sinker. It averages 96, tops out at 98, has a big breaking ball. So, again, you're just trying to throw darts and see if one of them clicks, and that's what Christian Roa is from Houston.
Yeah, the Twins have brought in a few guys over the last few weeks. You mentioned John Brebbia. They also signed Drew Smith. I think there was another guy they signed on a minor league deal, and then there's these two guys as well. Obviously, Garrett Acton's another one who's currently in the majors, and he's been fine for the most part. So I'm surprised we haven't seen a Brebbia or a Drew Smith yet. I figured by this point we would. I think out of these two names, Luis Garcia gets me a little more excited, although he is 39. There's a chance that he's just at the end of the road here. when he's good, like last year, he had a 3.42 ERA in 55 innings, so he was healthy, he was effective. If they can get that out of him, that'd be really, really good. In less exciting news, James Ellwanger, the 16th best prospect by my rankings. He's a right-handed pitcher. I believe he was drafted out of Dallas Baptist last year, was placed on the 60-day IL with a right elbow strain, so the Twins lose a promising young minor league prospect there. And now let's transition to some minor league prospects that made their major league debut on Wednesday. Connor Prielipp went 4 innings, allowed 2 runs on 4 hits, didn't walk anybody, and struck out 6. The slider in particular looked really, really good. I was impressed by Prielipp.
I was really impressed. I made a joke before he pitched about his walk rate, but because he's had problems with walks in the minors, but he had really good command of his fastball and his slider. His curveball and changeup were a little up and down as far as command, but the stuff is real. I mean, when he was drafted 4 or 5 years ago now in 2022, he was talked about as having some of the best stuff in the organization, and you could see it. And the Twins have not had a left-handed starter you feel comfortable about since probably Francisco Liriano 15 years ago. So it was just one game. The Mets lineup had been scuffling, but he looked really good. He looked really sharp. I got to see more whiffs on that 4-seam. It only graded out at a 96 stuff or 95 stuff plus, but the slider, again, 111 stuff plus. The changeup, 108. The curveball, 112. He mixed in a sinker as well, although it doesn't grade out very well. So electric arsenal, electric arm. I'd like to see him stick around in the rotation.
Yeah, and I think we will see him stick around at least for the next few weeks here, assuming that Rojas is the one option, and Prielipp obviously started yesterday. He's going to continue to start as long as Mick Abel is out, and he's effective. You mentioned the fastball and the sinker not being very good. He didn't really have command of either of them. The curveball was also just non-competitive for the most part. I think the progression of the fastball or the sinker will be really, really key for Prielipp. He doesn't need to necessarily get whiffs on him. He just needs to throw him for strike 1, strike 2 from time to time, because if he can get to that slider we saw yesterday, the Mets were just swinging and missing consistently. It's a true put away pitch, maybe, one of the best in the majors from a young starter. So if he continues to not walk anybody, which obviously that's not going to happen, he is a guy with control issues, but if he can work ahead in counts, if he can get to a scenario where he can use that slider, we saw him go to it on 3-2 counts and Mets hitters just froze. It landed in for a strike. It was a really, really encouraging debut. Then there was another left-handed pitcher making his major league debut yesterday. Not quite in the level of a Connor Prielipp prospect, but still a really, really highly regarded prospect. Kendry Rojas, he pitched 2 innings out of the bullpen, allowed 2 hits, no runs, got 2 double plays, I believe, walked 3, no strikeouts. So not quite as good as a debut as a Prielipp, but anytime you can allow no runs is a good thing. We have a Stuff Plus here, courtesy of Pitch Profiler on Twitter, also has a website. All 3 of his pitches grade out above 100. The 4-seam fastball, 105 or 6, I believe that is. The slider, 108, and then the changeup, 109. So 3 really good offerings that gives him a total of 107. So actually grades out higher than Prielipp, just throws less pitches. So that's what makes you question him as a starter. And then we saw those command issues come into play yesterday. Pitched himself into trouble and then also got out of it with some well-timed ground balls.
Yeah, I mean, you saw, I'm looking at it right now, the zone percentage, 40% of his pitches were in the strike zone, and he got an 18.8% whiff rate. So those are not good enough, but you would like to figure, he's still young, he's still only 23 years old. If not this year, certainly in the future years, you'd like to figure the stuff is there, the stuff is raw, it's really good. He'll theoretically figure out some command, and if he does, I think it's a really good pitch mix. I think they tunnel off each other really well. He's gotten strikeouts in the minor leagues. He's gotten whiffs. With more command, that will come. And both of these guys, I thought they handled their nerves pretty well. Debuting in New York is not an easy thing to do. I thought they mostly handled it really well from a composure standpoint. And they talked about that in the broadcast. I also just thought it was a fun little nugget that it was the first time the team had multiple pitchers debuting in the same game since the 1990s.
I believe it was also the first time the Twins started a homegrown left-handed pitcher since 2021. That was mentioned on the broadcast. I want to say the pitcher's name was Charlie Barnes. I think I have that right. He was a non-prospect that the Twins brought up at the end of the year. Said he actually started in October, so one of the last few games in the 2021 season. The Twins haven't had a pitching prospect on the level of Prielipp since I probably want to say Jose Barrios. So it's fun to see a guy with his caliber come up, succeed right away. We'll have to see it going forward the next few weeks before Mick Abel hopefully returns, and then the Twins will maybe have a decision to make at that point if there are no further injuries. Now let's go back to the Tuesday game, the game that continued the Mets' loss streak. The Twins scored 5 unanswered after a really dominant start from Nolan McLean. He had 5 perfect innings, but then Buxton hit a homer. He homered twice this series. Keisha finally, for one night came through with big RBI hits, and Devin Williams melted down once, and then I thought he was going to do it again tonight. Unfortunately, he got Larnach swinging. Just what were your big takeaways from Tuesday in that response to the, promising start from McLean before the Twins bats got going?
Yeah, my number one takeaway was just that Nolan McLean is really damn good. I mean, he reminded me a lot of like seeing Paul Skeens a couple years ago, where there's this, who is this guy? But he's just really good. But I also liked the way SWR responded. He had a 3-run home run in the 3rd inning, but then he locked in, ended up going 5 innings, 3 runs, kept the team in the ball game. He's been under a lot of criticism, and he responded pretty well in that game. It was great to see Buxton get it going, obviously. Great at bat where he almost gets hit on an inside pitch, and he takes an outside cutter. It's a 2-run home run. As he goes, so will the team. I know he had a couple other big hits this series that didn't ultimately lead to wins, but he looks to me like he's starting to heat up, and that was one of the main things I took away from this whole series, is that Buxton looks really good.
Yeah, he does, and I think tonight he finally got a hit with a runner in scoring position. Coming into Thursday's matchup, he had not had a hit. I believe he was 0 for 13, maybe 0 for 14 with a runner in scoring position. That did change tonight, so he has that monkey off his back. The other thing from this Tuesday game, Devin Williams' meltdown, I thought that, Mets fans were going to start a riot. That was, a crazy environment. And obviously you have the Frank meltdown on Twitter. Obviously deserved. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see those last 2 nights.
No, although after the we did almost, again, Devin Williams almost melted down today. And the New York crowd did have kind of a meltdown today because Ryan Jeffers did, for a moment there, make it look like a ball game when he hit a grand slam that he just pimped the ever-living you-know-what out of. So I kind of want to talk about Ryan Jeffers because he's another guy, again, been under criticism for the last couple of years about not being clutch and his framing and his defense. And you think about what he's done with the ABS. He's got a couple homers. He's been pretty good in high leverage this year. He's walking. He's hitting for average. He's hitting for power. He has good peripheral underlying things to support what he's doing. Do we think that we should start thinking about extending him?
Yeah, I think if Tom Poulad's going to talk all this talk that he did, in the latter half of the offseason and going into this year about how he wants to, build a competitive team, and if he was here, they would have spent money. I think this is a great place to start. A comparison that I had in mind is Alejandro Kirk, a similar bat-first catcher. Kirk maybe a little better bat-to-ball skills, but Jeffers isn't a guy that strikes out a ton either. Jeffers probably a little more power than Kirk, maybe a little bit worse defensively. Kirk makes 5 years, 11 AAV, so it's somewhere in the $58 million range. I think that's probably a little high for Jeffers, but if you just search up catcher contracts, there's not that many that are extended for, more than 3 years other than, the Will Smiths or Sean Murphy types. Jeffers obviously isn't to that level. If you can convince Jeffers to stay, I think you have to do it. Victor Caratini obviously is here for 2027 as well, if there is a 2027, but he's off to a slow start, and I don't know that I feel comfortable, going with him as the number 1 catcher into next year. I think Jeffers, if you can get him for 3 years, maybe 4, if he continues this good start, pay him somewhere around $40 million if it's 3 years, maybe $52 million if it's 4 years. I would gladly do that, and I think the Twins would too. The bigger concern is that, Jeffers is this close to free agency. I haven't looked at the free agent catcher market, but I would think he's probably the top, if not one of the top names on the market. There's no reason not to, explore that at this point and see if some team is really willing to overpay for his bat.
Well, he is definitely the top guy. It's the sort of classic group of your old backup guys who maybe were good in the past. A couple of things. I want to stand up for my guy Carrot. He as a backup catcher, I believe he has a 350 OBP. I'll take that from a backup catcher any day. He has a low slug, but he's been a little unlucky with that. He's not a great defender, but again, if it's in a backup catcher, I can rock with that. But with Jeffers, I think that the free agency thing is going to get a little complicated with, we don't know what's going to happen exactly in the offseason, but there's probably going to be a work stoppage. So you might have an outside chance to extend him before the offseason really kicks into high gear just because of that work stoppage. And yeah, the number I've always thought is like 3 years, $40 million. That would be a 13 mil AAV, maybe a little higher than that. But again, if 3 years, 45, 4 years, 60, I think that would be about right. Eduardo Tait has been nice in A-ball, but he won't be up here for a couple years. Have Jefferson Caratini for a year, and then maybe Jefferson some other backup for a year, and then Tait kind of starts to come in. It's not easy to have catchers who can hit, and that plan would give you a really nice lineage of catchers who can hit. And again, it's just not a position where there's a lot of good hitters, and Jefferson is a good hitter at that position. So definitely, Tom Pohlad, if you're listening, get it done.
Yeah, and you mentioned the AAV. With a catcher in particular, I'm much more interested in going higher AAV in less years just because they're guys that their bodies tend to break down. It's a very demanding position. So say you went to him with like 2 years, 38 million, which would obviously be like, much more than he's worth on a 3 or 4 year deal. I'd be really interested in that. You mentioned Tait. You could maybe work that in. So Jeffers is off the books as Tait is hopefully coming up. I think that's another thing they could explore again. At this point, I think Jeffers is probably going to explore the market. I'm not sure who his agent is. I hope it's not Scott Boras, because if it is, we can, kiss that goodbye.
I think that the high AAV is a really good point, because especially if there maybe is a salary floor coming in, which we don't know if there is, but there might be. The Twins have money to spend. They don't have a ton of money to spend, but they can overspend on a deal or two in terms of a high AAV. And like you said, it's a position where the guys break down. So overpaying him for 2 years, 3 years, that's actually a great plan.
Yeah, we'll see if that happens. In some other news, Mick Abel, more clarity on his injury diagnosis. Dan Hayes of The Athletic wrote an article, said that it was the best case for Abel, light inflammation in the right elbow. Zoll wants to get out in front of it. It'll be something that will be relatively quick and short. So I think at this point you're looking at maybe another 3 to 4 weeks. He's probably going to have to make a rehab start. The earliest he can be activated off the IL is May 1st, so that would give Prelip at least 2 more starts. I'll take the over on that. I think we'll see Abel sometime, probably mid-May. But all things considered, this is absolutely the best case scenario when you hear right elbow inflammation.
Yeah, when I heard that, I was thinking we'd be lucky to see him before 2028 if there was a lockout next year. So the fact that he might only hopefully miss 3-4 weeks, you'll take that anytime. Prelip actually looked good, so if it gives him a little more runway to try to work on some things and make a couple starts, that's all good. This year is kind of about development, so I'm fine watching Prelip.
And welcome back into Twins Takes as Twins Insider and I continue to break down the Mets series. And we'll now have our bi-weekly talk about the Twins defense. There was some weird positioning plays in this series, I thought, both by Royce Lewis and Matt Wallner on Wednesday night. Royce Lewis, I thought, was playing really far off the line. I believe the first hit of the game was by Bo Bichette. It was hit down the third baseline, and Royce wasn't even close to making a play on it. And then he had the throwing error late in the game, or I don't know if it was late in the game or not, but he had a crucial throwing error, which we saw a lot 2 years ago. It was largely fixed last year. And then there was obviously the Matt Wallner misplay late in the game that gave the Mets what would become the game-winning run. I know you have a lot of thoughts on that. So what are your comments here on the Royce defense as well as the Matt Wallner play late in the game?
Yeah, Royce, first, he athletically looks like he should be able to make the plays. He's mostly been getting to the ball, and then something weird happens. He slips. He drops it on the transfer. He makes a bad throw. He makes a bad throw that could be scooped that isn't scooped. I still, if Royce is healthy enough, I still believe in the athleticism of a shortstop playing at third base. I think that will sort of even itself out. I do not believe in Matt Wallner. Frankly, I don't really even believe in him as a hitter, but I think there's at least a decent hitter in there. I do not believe in him in the outfield. His sprint speed has gone from 65th percentile to 50th to 40th to 20th percentile this year. He's the worst player in baseball by defensive runs saved. We saw it on that play on Wednesday. He maybe could have dove probably shouldn't have, maybe could have, didn't get a great jump on the ball. It was a 60% catch probability, which means it's kind of 50-50, but you just saw it with him lumbering over there. He has no chance, and Walker Jenkins would be a better fielder than him by a mile because, again, by defensive run saved, I think he's like -5 or -6. Jenkins would be at least 0, if not plus. Emmanuel Rodriguez would be at least 0 and not plus. Oh, and by the way, Rodriguez is also one-dotting in OPS and AAA. Another guy who I believe would be a better fielder, I know would be a better fielder, is Alan Roden. Unfortunately, it sounds like he's pretty badly injured.
Yeah, we'll wait for the Twins to confirm before going into detail, but it sounds like the issue that caused Roden to miss time last week has popped up again, and it sounds like this one's going to be pretty severe. So don't be surprised if Roden's placed on the 60-day IL here when the Twins need a roster spot on the 40-man. It's just a really unfortunate situation for Roden. He came back, played Tuesday, and then he wasn't in the lineup today. At this point, if he misses most or if not all of this season, he's going to be a 27-year-old player next year, and he's going to have less than 100 games in the major leagues. That's just, going back to the Varland trade is going to be a really, really poor outcome for the Twins. And for Roden, I think he's a talented player if he can stay on the field. Just a sad situation really all around.
Yeah, this was a huge year for him. He had to really out of camp try to beat out Outman and Larnach, and I guess Larnach's been really good, so I guess thankfully he didn't beat out Larnach. But he had to make the team early in this year because you knew by the end of the year he would be sort of passed from behind by Emmanuel Rodriguez, Walker Jenkins, Gabby Gonzalez, maybe even Hendry Mendez. So like you mentioned, the Varland trade, that's going to be unfortunate because I think there was probably a pretty decent player in there in Roden. If everything worked out right, I think he could have been a really good defensive, high OBP platoon bat who would be the strong side of a platoon, could have been like a 2 or 3 WAR player. I just don't see it now. And now, again, we'll see how long of a leash Wallner and Keishel start to get now, because you talk about losing runs in the field, losing runs at the plate, and we can get into that later, but the Twins are going to have to start making some tough calls very soon if they want to salvage winning baseball from this season.
Yeah, and one of those guys who would be a tough call would be a very aggressive move. Walker Jenkins hit his first home run of the season for the Saints on Tuesday. Jenkins is a guy that when he was drafted projected to have 20, 25, 30 home run power if everything went right. We haven't really seen that in the minor leagues. It would seem to get one on the board here Tuesday for the Saints. What do you think Walker Jenkins' power profile looks like as a major league player? Do you think he's more going to be a 15, 20 homer guy? 20 might even be optimistic at this point, but if he hits, who the hell cares?
Well, yeah, because I was going to say that because I was going to make the Martin comparison. Not that they're exactly comparable, but we saw it with Martin. If a guy's a really good hitter, has good swing decisions, don't try to ruin him by making him a 20 homer bat. So that's number one. If home runs are always gravy. First and foremost, he'll be a good fielder. He'll be a good base runner. The swing decisions are grading out is really good. The exit velocity is really good. So I ultimately think like his first couple years, the power won't be there, but he gets a little more mature, sort of learns how guys are pitching. I think he could be kind of an ambush guy. He could hit like 22 homers, something like that.
Yeah, I think 20 homers is about the mark I would have him now, assuming everything goes right. Obviously, if you get into the 80th percentile, 90th percentile, there still is a 30 homer bat. He's still really young, so we'll see his body mature and develop as he continues to get older, but it is good to see him get a home run on the board. Now we'll get into our series takeaway. Mine is pretty simple. Anthony Banda was good Tuesday night. You finally thought, oh, maybe he's, going to show us the good pitcher that he was for the Dodgers last year. Tonight, nope, back to the same Banda that he was for the last 3 outings prior to the series opener against the Mets. He's got to go.
Yeah, I just want to echo that because that was going to be my takeaway before I saw that was yours. We talked about the aggressive moves. It's not even that aggressive. He's pitched in like a dozen games and ERA in the double digits. Like you said, just has to go. Just not good enough. You tried to build a bullpen from scraps. Some of the scraps are bad. Move on to new scraps like the guys we talked about earlier in the show. I just want to quickly mention Troy's takeaway was that Keishel needs a reset. and that mirrors mine, which is that Wallner and or Keishel might need to go to AAA. I don't want to banish them, but they both have options. And again, Wallner is incredibly easy to replace because you have 2 top 50 overall prospects who are both corner outfielders. Keishel's a little trickier because you'd be either making Clemens an everyday second baseman, or I think calling up Culpepper, who has not been that great. He's been okay. But Keishel looks lost and Wallner looks lost. They're not a ton of value in the field. And again, we've seen it with Wallner. A reset is good sometimes. You go down for 3 weeks, you clobber AAA pitching, get your confidence back, and sometimes it makes you better.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with both of those, that a reset would do them good. I just don't think it makes a lot of sense for the Twins or the players in particular. Like you said, making Clemens the everyday second baseman, I'd rather roll with Keishel and let him figure it out up here. And then Wallner, at this point, he's 27, 28 years old, much like we talked about with Alan Roden coming into the year. He has nothing left to prove at AAA. If you're going to send him down, you're basically just admitting that you're done with him. So I don't think either particularly makes a lot of sense. I'd be very surprised if Wallner's optioned, and I would be a little less surprised if Keishel's optioned, but I still think it's unlikely. You mentioned Culpepper. I believe he has a 107, 108 OPS plus at AAA, which is good for a 23-year-old hitter, but that's not the kind of guy that's knocking down the door at AAA. Now we'll get into the stat of the week. The Twins are 0-5 in one-run games. This doesn't come as a huge surprise to me, just because going into the year, we knew this bullpen was going to struggle. And when you have a bad bullpen, it's going to be hard to win games. And they lost one here. I thought they were going to lose another one tonight. It ended up being 2 runs. Devin Williams, eventually, he didn't slam the door. He gently shut the door on the Twins. But 0-5, that's a number that has to turn around.
Yeah, I mean, I actually go back to the Reds series. They have the Mets bullpen's pretty bad too, but the Reds obviously have a really good bullpen, and they're like number 6 relievers able to hold the deficit at 2 while they claw back on our really bad relievers. And again, you're going to be in games like that constantly until they either, Kendry Rojas clicks as a reliever, or Zebby clicks as a reliever, or they trade for a closer or something. This stat, unfortunately, is going to continue to skew this way.
Yeah, I tend to agree. And this is kind of a stat. The Twins are now below 500 again. I'm just going to pop this on you. Do you think we'll see them above 500 again this season? That would mean, if they're going to do it, they probably got to do it against the Rays here.
Yeah, I don't have the schedule off the top of my head, but ask me on Monday. If they lose this next series, the answer is going to be no. If they win the series and they're 500 again, well, maybe.
Yeah, so it's Twins and then or it's Rays at the Rays and then 4 against the Mariners, and then the Blue Jays come to town. So 3 teams that Rays maybe not so much, but it is on the road. And then the Mariners obviously are expected to be a really good team. The Blue Jays were in the World Series. We saw what the Twins did to them up in Toronto a few weeks ago. They are beatable, but still a good team on paper. So it doesn't get any easier from here. We just saw them lose to, definitely the coldest team in baseball in the Mets this series. I'm going to say they don't get above 500 again this year. I hope I'm wrong. And now, Insider, why don't you tell us about a new way we have for the listeners of this show to, get a little engagement here, something that we've talked about, something that we're going to try out.
Yeah. We want to get some engagement. We want the audience to get involved, and we want to be able to take some questions and maybe answer them. So on these midweek episodes, in the YouTube comments, or using hashtag AskTwinsTakes, AskTwinstakes, Ask Twins Takes. You can use that hashtag or the YouTube comments to ask a question of us, whether it's about the team, whether it's about baseball in general. I suppose you could ask like a goofy question as well if you want. What's our favorite color or something, but we'll just answer 2 or 3, 4 or 5, the best couple of those on the show, take you a minute or 2 to answer them. And that's going to be, I think, every one of these midweek episodes. Just a little fun way to get, we try to engage with the audience on Twitter and whatnot, but it's just another way to engage. And it's always, the reason we're doing this is because we like to talk about baseball. So it's fun to get the guests on the show, but you can't get, everybody to be a guest on the show. So if you guys have a question, Go ahead.
Yeah, and it also lets us know what you want to hear us talk about, we obviously come up with the ideas of what to talk about each and every episode, but we don't always hit what people want to hear, what you guys want to know our thoughts on. So this is another way to just, try to make this a better show. Again, that's hashtag Ask Twins Takes, or just simply reply to the Twins Takes podcast on Twitter when the episodes are posted, or leave a comment on YouTube. Those are ways to get involved. We'll try to answer a few of those each week, as long as you guys do your part and leave us those questions. After this break, we'll take a look around the AL Central and then preview the upcoming road series in Tampa Bay. Stick with us.
And welcome back to Twins Central. This is Falvey's Mattress checking in. I got called out of the bullpen as I hear the two starters were having some struggles. So you guys want to catch me up a little bit, and let's keep moving forward. What do we got going on here?
Yeah, I mean, you've been known before as the Anthony Bonda of Twins Takes, so happy to have you on here to close it out. We talked about the Mets series, so now we're just going to transition, be forward looking, and look towards this Rays series.
In other news, this show is called Twins Takes, not Twins Central.
My bad. It was a quick warm up in the pen for me.
He's
pitching
late
on
game jitters.
He's pitching on back to back. He's a little shaky. You got to hit a guy just like Bonda, like I said.
Yeah, he hit the leadoff batter. Now let's hope he doesn't come around to score. We'll take a quick look around the AL Central here. The Chicago White Sox, playing better baseball, swept the Arizona Diamondbacks in 3 games. They return home to host the Washington Nationals. Colson Montgomery and Murakami are the first pair of teammates in MLB history to each homer in 4 straight games. That's a very impressive note for them. Murakami, we've talked about plenty on the show. Colson Montgomery is a promising young hitter for them. A lot of power, not much hit tool in his game, but the White Sox are playing better the last few games. Then the Royals, they lost another series to Baltimore. They're just off to a dreadful start. They host the Angels here. They announced plans to build a new ballpark in downtown Kansas City, Missouri. So that'll be interesting to see what that looks like when it's finally built.
I shout out Will. I think all 3 of us said the Royals would come in second place. Will said he didn't see it. We all laughed at him. Never wrong, just early. But in other news, the Guardians went 1-2 against the Astros, and now they have 3 in Toronto. Old friend Carlos Correa had a couple doubles, a couple double plays, and the Guardians pitching really struggled with that potent Astros lineup and early MVP candidate Yordan Alvarez. And then also the Tigers are playing really good baseball. They're the best team in the division. They're playing like it. They took 2 out of 3 from the really high-quality Brewers, and they have 3 coming up against that Cincinnati team that Twins fans just saw. Spencer Torkelson finally got his home run today against Milwaukee, walk-off home run, big hit. Like I said, their offense is coming around. We knew they would. Since the Twins shut them down, they have not lost a lot of ball games.
Yeah, I believe they've lost only 2 games since the Twins swept that 4-game matchup a few weeks ago. Now we'll take a look at another team the Twins played not long ago, the Tampa Bay Rays. They're 13-11, 14th in WRC+, 6th in batting average, just 25th in ERA, which when you think Tampa Bay, you don't think 25th in ERA. That's 4.74 on the season. And the underlying numbers back that up. They're 24th in FIP with 4.66. Their lineup scored 11 runs per game. The first game of the series tomorrow night, 6:10 start, a really intriguing matchup. Right-handed pitcher Taj Bradley goes against Drew Rasmussen. He's 1-0, 2.75 ERA. A Taj Bradley revenge game on Doc here.
Yeah, he's going to struggle with that lineup that scores 11 runs per game, but I think that was 11th in runs per game. But I am excited for the Taj Bradley game. Ray, when he had some interesting relationships in Tampa. He famously, they didn't think he was taking his preparation seriously enough. He wasn't reading the scouting report. And again, we've talked about it. He's another guy that Twins may have fleeced the Tampa Bay Rays in a trade, which is hard to do, but he's obviously been good. He had a really interesting interview on MLB Central this week. If you haven't seen that, check it out. It's about 5 minutes. Taj is going to, I think, be coming out, warm weather inside that dome, revenge on his mind. I'm looking for him to have a really strong start, high velocity, a ton of strikeouts.
Yeah, I'm hoping for more good Taj too, with his revenge coming up. Speaking of good starts, Bailey Ober was pretty solid his last outing. We'll see him in game 2. that's a 3:10 start on Saturday. He's going to be pitching against left-handed Shane McClanahan. So we have not gotten rid of the left-handed starters yet. Shane is 1-2 with a 5.00 ERA. So we're just kind of looking to see if Ober can keep stringing together quality starts. I mean, his last few starts, he's been pretty solid. I know last game he had quite the zone he was given, and Caratini was doing a pretty good job framing the balls, but that certainly helped him with his velo still down. This is his first game in controlled weather, so maybe we'll see a little uptick in that velocity. Maybe he'll get up to 91, 92 for a few pitches. We will see. But, yeah, just looking to see if Bailey Ober can keep stringing it together using that off speed that he's been doing so well thus far.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what both of these guys look like. McClanahan obviously was a really, really, really good pitcher a few years ago, then missed time with injury. His numbers this year aren't good, so I'm curious to see what he looks like. And then Ober, like Falvey's Mattress mentioned, he started 4 games at home, and then he started that opening series in Baltimore, which was pretty cold weather. I'm curious to see what he looks like in controlled environments. I'm not going to, hopium my way into saying that he's going to sit 92, 93, but if he can at least touch that, just once or twice, that'll be encouraging as the weather continues to warm up here in Minnesota. Yeah,
I think that Ober is, again, the last game or two, he's looked like his old self, which is just that quality start machine. He struggled with the Rays lineup a little bit a couple weeks ago in the home opener, so it'd be fun to see him, to see if he's kind of finding himself, if he's in a sharper form, if he can handle the same lineup a little bit better. That would be a really good sign.
Yeah, and then in the series finale at 12:40 Central Time first pitch, Simeon Woods Richardson gets the ball against right-handed pitcher Jesse Scholtan's 1-1, 2.93 ERA. That's just in a handful of outings. I believe he's was on the White Sox last season and wasn't very good, if I have that correctly. Austin Martin will be in the lineup game 2 against the left-handed pitcher Shane McClanahan. I hope he's in the lineup game 3. The way that's going to happen is Cody Clemens finding a seat on the bench more consistently against righties. Do you guys think that's something that could happen? Or Shelton, he's showed faith in him, and he had a fine series here against New York. So the answer is probably yes, he's going to keep starting. Do you think that is the case?
You talking about Austin Martin?
No, Clemens. Do you think Clemens is going to keep, getting to face right-handed hitters? Because
like you said,
if you want Martin in, the way to do it is, you slide Bell to first base, and then you slide either Larnach or Wallner to DH, and then you have Martin start one of the corner outfield is the easiest way to do it. You could also bench Wallner, which Insider talked about a little bit earlier.
You could bench the disgusting slob who's worse than Clemens at everything, but he's not from Forest Lake, so
I just think they're probably not at that point yet. Although
leave this whole thing in. Leave this whole thing in. It's good TV.
We're gonna leave it in. So answer the question: do you think Clemens will still be in there?
Yeah, because they don't want to play Josh Bell at first base. They've shown that. I mean, I think Austin Martin has been spectacular thus far. He's been everything we've wanted and more, and he deserves to be playing every day, whether it's in left or right field. But I don't think we're to that point yet. Shelton has not showed that he's wanted to play Josh Bell at first base too often. Like Central said, Cody Clemens had a decent series in New York, so I don't know if we're to that point quite yet, sadly.
Austin Martin is our best player. If Derek Shelton doesn't play him every day somehow, figure it out with Wallner, Larnach, Clemens, help. Like Clemens could play second, give Keishel the rest. If Austin Martin doesn't play, you're making yourself worse any given day.
Yeah, I do agree with that. You got to find ways, not 6 days a week, but probably 5 days a week. He's got to be in there. He's putting together great at bats. It seems like he's ahead in the count every time. So hopefully we see him at least 2 games here over the weekend. Now let's get into our series predictions. I'll choose to be optimistic. I think the Twins take 2 or 3 from Tampa Bay. They're playing decent ball right now, but I look at game 1 tomorrow. I think Taj is going to pitch really well in that revenge matchup. And then the latter 2 games I see kind of as toss-ups, so we'll give 1 to each team.
I'm going to be pessimistic. I noted earlier in our episodes of the pod that I hate playing against the Rays. I think I had us going 2-1 and saying it was going to be the most miserable games of all time. The vibes are bad around the Twins right now. We've had bullpen implosions that we've been worried about. Our close games have started showing the leaks in our bullpens. So I'm going to go 0-3. I don't feel good about the upcoming series. I think the Rays are miserable and always a matchup nightmare for us. And yeah, I don't feel good about this one.
Well, shout out our guy Troy. He agrees with Central. 2-1 is his prediction. I'm more on the team Will. I don't like playing the Rays. They have a high average. They're going to put the ball in play a lot against a team that can't field. They're going to run the bases. They already took 2 of 3 from us. I do think they're going to win that Taj game. Just he's going to kind of will us to a win. I see 1 and 2.
And a quick update on the series standings predictions. Troy and I are both tied with 4 and 4. Insider right behind 3 and 5. And then Falvey's Mattress proving he's not a closer at this stage of his career, 1 and 7 on the season. And that's it for this episode. We'll be back Monday recapping the Tampa Bay Rays series. Please like and subscribe wherever you're listening. You can follow the podcast on Twitter at Twins Takes Pods. We'll be posting shorts there from the episodes. And also if there's any news, there will be roster move tomorrow with Cody Funderburk, so we'll make sure to get that out to you guys. And then, as we mentioned earlier in the show, use hashtag #AskTwinsTakes or reply on YouTube. Leave a comment or reply on Twitter when you click that link. We'll make sure to get to those next week. That's hashtag #AskTwinsTakes for Twins Insider and the proven closer, Falvey's Mattress. I'm Twin Central. This is Twins Takes. Thanks for listening, guys.